Good morning, boys and girls. Hey, listen, this is your playground guy, Johnny Juan Ortiz. I am super stoked, super excited to have you guys on here with us on Faith Your Fears Friday. But it's not just any Faith Your Fears Friday. You've heard me say this once, you've heard me say it again, that this whole Fun Life community, right? It's an environment and a habitat, a playground, so to speak, where you really can, yes, you can really activate that childlike faith that is inside of you to be able to live out your childhood dreams in this playground that we call life, guys. And I am super excited to have you here because everything, it's all powered by this guy right here. Legendary speaker, trainer, motivator, Mr. Ziglar, and of course his proud son, Tom Ziglar, who's the author of Choose to Win, and just so happens to be our guest here this morning. So I'm not going to delay it any longer. I want to get him on here, and I want to get you guys familiar with him because he is bringing the heat. I'm going to go tell you, get your pen and paper ready. There's going to be some Rider Downers dropped on here. Tom, welcome to the show.
Hey, Johnny Wad, man. What a blessing to be with you here. What a great way to start our Friday.
Hey, man, Friday.
Faith. That's right. I love it. Awesome.
Hey, Tom, anytime we come on here on Faith Your Fears Friday, it all started from, the philosopher Mike Tyson always said that everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. But because he has a little bit of a lisp, I heard faith. When you think about it, sometimes we get punched in our faith. And so when that happens, Tom, for those of you, and I know it sounds weird, but there's a lot of cool kids on here that are going to be watching this either live or on the replay that they don't know much about you. But go ahead and introduce yourself, say hello to the world, and then to the cool kids, and then tell us about what that means to you, that faith and fear and that whole concept.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I am, the proud son of Zig Ziglar. Wow, what a legacy I have. Dad was even better off stage than he was on stage. And, he impacted like 250 million people. No matter where I go in the world, I meet people who've been influenced by him. And it's just a joy to carry on the legacy that he left. And he left great instructions. He made it really clear that we weren't supposed to try to be him. We were supposed to be the person God created us to become, and to use our own gifts and talents and our unique abilities, and not try to copy or be something that you're not. So when I truly understood that, that's when the freedom came in. That's when the ability to flourish came in, without the enemies of faith, which are doubt and worry and all these other things. Just a turning point in my life. I was being invited to speak regularly. This is like 15 years ago. And I always said, no, I'm never going to do that. That's not what I want to do. And finally somebody talked me into it. My stomach was in knots, and I did a good job, I guess, from the audience perspective. And then I got invited again, and my stomach was in knots. It was awful. I don't know if anybody's ever had to do something that you're supposed to do, but that fear, that anxiety, that worry. And that happened like for a year. So I had to sit myself in a corner and say, what's going on? And when I say sit myself in a corner, I'm like, what is the cause of this? And what is the effect of this? Right? So it's like a cause and effect. Well, the cause was I believed a lie. The lie I believed was I told myself that people expected me to be like my dad. Oh, wait a second. That's not possible, right? There's only one Zig Ziglar, and Dad never told me to be like him. And so then I had to say, well, what's the effect of that? Well, I could never do that, right? So I knew that no matter how I did, it was never going to measure up. And so that cognitive dissonance in my brain was just going crazy, and and all that stuff was going on. And so what I had to do was flip that and say, okay, so what does it really mean? And so this is the truth. The truth is that people wanted me to come on stage and represent and have the same values and principles as my father, but they wanted me to be who God created me to be. They wanted me to be prepared to be the best version of myself, to do a good job within my own capacity and capability, to really practice and work on that, but to be myself. And so that let my true nerd come out on stage, because as you know, Johnny, I'm a big nerd, the why behind, and then it got fun, right? It got fun. And so now with when I said, well, what's the cause of my anxiety? It was believing a lie. And so, well, what if I believe the truth, right? So believing a lie led to apprehension and, no confidence and, just really dreading what was about to happen. And now believing the truth, which is, hey, be prepared, speak the truth in love, and always upskill, always learn, be a little bit better the next time. Lawrence. Hey, Lawrence, brother Lawrence is on. I love you, man. He says nerd gets paid. I love that little quote there. And so now the effect is joy. Like the most gratifying thing to me is in front of that room, opening up for discussion and getting the hard question, right? So faith, your fear was, well, what's the cause of that fear? We got to look it in the eye. And then we go back to the foundational truth is, well, who does God say you are? And who do I trust more, me or God? I mean, bottom line, trust the Lord. And he says this, okay. So then my faith comes in, boom. That's what I want to do. Is I just want to get up there and present from the heart with the expectation that if I speak the truth in love, what people do with that's between them and God. So there you go. The short.
I hope everybody was taking notes, because it's a process, right? You go from that fear to that faith. And once you address it, and truth be told, correct me if I'm wrong, but more times than not, it's nowhere near as bad as we made it up in our head.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. So here's two little nuggets. So this morning I'm working out and I'm thinking, and fear, false evidence appearing real. So here's something I wrote down and then I added to it. Okay. We acquire what we think about most. Now that's good. Okay. So as Matt Rush would say, here's gooder. Okay.
Love me some Matt.
How we think about what we think about most determines what we acquire. Okay. So I went on, I was thinking about, oh my gosh, I'm going to get up there and people are going to be comparing me to Dad and his style and his charisma. And so the anxiety and worry, but the reality was I was still getting up there, right? I was still going to speak, and all I did was change the perspective of the how. And so the how is, hey, they just want me to represent the same virtues and values and principles that Dad did in my own way and with my own gifts and talents. And so how I thought about that situation completely flipped it. So this is a cause and effect principle. So if you've got a negative, if like Dad used to say, if you got stinking thinking about something, what is the cause of that? What's the effect of it? And then focus on how you think about it, because it's the how you think about it that changes everything.
Yeah, the methodology, right?
Yep.
Too many people get stuck, right? And I heard a wise man once say the difference between a rut and a grave is about 6 feet. You do not get stuck in a rut. Tom, you've shared with us on our Monday morning coaching calls the opposite, or the what's it called, the transverse of depression. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, Rabbi Daniel Lapin says this. He says that, hey, April, good, glad you're on. Rabbi Daniel Lapin says that the the opposite of depression is not happiness. The opposite of depression is purpose. And this is powerful. This is counterculture. So the culture says all the marketing inputs we get, no matter where we go, it's like, Johnny Juan, you're supposed to be happy. Your life is about happiness. Eat this taco. Oh, that's devastating right there, right? Drive this car, take this pill, go on this trip, buy that purse. Oh, and you'll be happy. Well, when something goes wrong in your life and you go, wait a second, I'm not happy. So what do? You eat the cheesecake and you binge on Netflix. And what does that lead to? Depression, right? It just gets worse. And so here's the reality. The opposite of depression is purpose. And so here's what's cool is when we have a clearly defined purpose, a dream, a goal, or a why. And Johnny, you're the best at this, right? This is what you do with people is you help them like discover and get clarity on their dream, their goal, their why, right? By asking them, questions that makes their heart sing and go, wait a second, like you wake up that buried song in their heart. That's what you do. And so when you get clarity on that purpose, and then you start thinking of how, right, the cause and effect and I'm going to change my how thinking and how I'm going to get to that purpose. And then you start taking the action steps. Change starts with the thinking and comes with the doing. So now I'm starting to take those action steps towards my purpose. And then guess what happens? Happiness shows up on that path. That's it, right? Oh, and Anita and Johnny, laughter helps, right? Like if you want to change a state like immediately, just dig into the laughter, right? And so sometimes I look back and I laugh because I'm like having so much fun going on stage, which I used to dread, and I just chuckled to myself. How could I've ever been there, right? So yeah, so there you go. So that's where that purpose really is powerful, right? That purpose that we have in our life is when we pursue that purpose, and when we align our actions to that purpose, and we move towards that, then happiness shows up. Now, here's the cool thing: is I think, and I know, every person on the planet, we all have a similar purpose. Each of our purpose is unique, but it's all similar in one way. And that is, I believe we're here to serve and solve the problems of God's children. And so who's God's child? Whoever he puts in front of you. That's who you're supposed to serve. And so when you walk out in the world saying I'm fulfilled, it could be just getting somebody to laugh, somebody to have some fun, somebody to step into their purpose, their dreams, their why, and move towards that. So I love that.
And I'll tell you what, Anita's on here with us, and she went through the certification process to become a laughter yoga instructor. I can't make this up, guys. It's legit. I got a certification to prove it. But the interesting thing about that whole certification was how they work on the mind. And if I do have a superpower, right, that's my guy. Superman is my guy. I get it. Kryptonite, blah, blah, blah. But my superpower, Tom, if I had to nail a superpower, I think I know I do my best to connect this with this. And I gamify it in a way that makes it fun, where the fear is still there. I don't minimize the fear. I get it, right? 40% of all the things that we do are self-fulfilling prophecies, and it's because we focus on the fear, so we get more fear. But when you talked about earlier about flipping that switch, about changing that mindset, all of a sudden, everything changes. And when these two connect, woo, baby.
Yep.
Watch out.
100%. And Dad used to talk about laughter. He would tell a funny on stage, and sometimes you could tell the audience was a little reserved, and just a couple of people would chuckle, but everybody else was kind of holding it in. And then he would pull out science. He would say, you know what? If you feel like laughing, go ahead and laugh, because it's scientifically proven that if you hold a laugh in, it will reverse itself, go down to your hips, and spread your waist. So you got to let that baby out, right?
I'm not holding him any longer, Tom. And he's the one that I heard a long time ago. I heard him speak live in 97, 98. And through the tapes and through the CDs, as right progressed. Now we're just on downloads. I heard him say that when someone laughed, now he strategically put in a funny every so many minutes, right? Because of what it did, the effect that it had on the brain. And people who sat through his speeches were actually more energized after they heard him speak than when they got there, because of the room, the vibration, the frequency, whatever you want to call it, the elevation, and his unique ability to be, I mean, he commanded a room like nobody's business. And that was the first time, he was the first speaker I'd ever heard motivation. But I was like, well, whatever that is, I got to get me some of that. And I found out earlier, matter of fact, I posted on it about that word enthusiasm, how it's broken up into two words. I'm reading his book, Secrets of Closing the Sale. And towards the end, it talks about the enthusiasm, the word enthusiasm. And really, everybody does have a purpose. You know, God don't make no junk, right? And I love, he said, neither does your mom and I. I think Cindy just posted that one not too long ago. But all of you guys are just amazing. Julie, Cindy, I mean, Miss Lori Majors, Alexandra, you know, everybody that I've met over there at Ziglar headquarters is amazing. Tom, this week I've been on a series talking about the acorn to the mighty oak. And I'm a bring this up here, and I want you to kind of share a little bit from this, because this is something that is so true. And if you can, just tell us a little bit about this diagram right here. Let me see if I can pull it up.
All right. If you can't pull it up, I think I remember it. Ooh, look at that. The wheel is turning. It's going round and round.
Okay. It's up on my end, but if not.
Yeah. So it's a tree's fruitfulness depends on its rootfulness. Is that the
yes.
one? Okay. Because I can't see it on my end, but that's okay. A tree's fruitfulness depends on its rootfulness. And here's what's really cool is, Johnny Juan, I know you've got a Choose to Win event coming up in your neighborhood, and you're going to be leading that. And so as you're watching this diagram, I want you to think about this. The roots of the tree, I believe there are 7 roots to that tree. And so they're the mental, the spiritual, the physical, the family, the financial, the personal, and career. And so those are the 7 roots. And so our rootfulness determines our fruitfulness. So we've got these 7 areas of our life, which are also the spokes on the wheel of life. It's the cornerstone of Choose to Win. And so we got to nourish those roots. Until we nourish those roots, we cannot have fruitfulness, right? So our roots determine our fruitfulness. And so what does that mean? It means we have to be intentional and choose the habit. So how do we choose that habit of bringing in the fruit, right, that we want? Well, the habit that drives that is how we're growing each one of those roots. All right, I see that up there, right? So what are the mental habits that we create? What are the spiritual habits that we create? What are the physical habits? Because as we build those habits and we start nourishing those roots, then that creates the fruit that comes out of that. And one of the stories that I tell now, it's called the greenhouse paradox. And I want you to hear about this. When a number of years ago in California, they had a big forest fire and it took out a whole forest. And so I believe it was the Forestry Service there. They said, you know what? We are going to super exceed how long it takes to get a mature forest here. And so instead of letting nature take its course and letting the weeds come in and then the brush and then the small trees and then letting it kind of graduate into a mature forest over, I don't know, 40 years, 100 years, the Forestry Service just came in and they planted all of these saplings of the end tree that they wanted, right? And so they're shortcutting. They're coming in and they're planting these. And within a year, 80% of those saplings died. So I want you to hear that. 80% of them. So they're like, well, why did that happen? We just spent all this money planting all these trees, trying to get the end result that we wanted quicker, right? The shortcut. And so they did some thinking on it, and then they realized that those saplings were raised in the perfect condition of a greenhouse. And so these saplings were raised in a temperature controlled environment. They always had exactly the right amount of moisture. There was never any wind in it. And when they started analyzing the saplings that had died, what they discovered is that the wind had snapped them in half, because as the young tree was growing, as the sapling was growing, the cellular fibers in that tree, because it had never been stressed by wind, they were weak, right? So the friction, the wind, the adversity they'd never been exposed to it. And then they got too tall to where when the wind blew them over, they snapped. And so they said, well, we'll try something different. So they went back into the greenhouse. They put air conditioners and heaters in it. They put these giant wind fans in it. And as they grew the saplings, they blew the fans like incredibly, right? They wanted to give them the impression of living in a windy environment. And then they lowered the temperature. Then they raised the temperature. And then they didn't water them for months, right? So now they're having to grow up in an environment of what the world is like. And when they planted those saplings, 80% of them lived. And so let's tie this all together. This is all about understanding the principle of cause and effect. And so what was the cause of those trees dying in the first example? It was they weren't prepared for the world, right? So because they were not prepared for the world, the effect was 80% of them died. And so a lot of times we have this attitude of everything happens to me. Life is terrible. Every time I do something, everybody says no and nothing ever works out. And whatever, everybody else is doing better than me. And so we get this attitude of, gosh, the world is terrible. And then our effect is that multiplies and people don't like being around us. People don't, they're like, well, I have this opportunity, but all I've ever heard from that person is how everything goes wrong. So obviously I can't consider them. Well, what if we changed our mindset just like those trees, and just imagine those young saplings, right, in that greenhouse. Imagine if the gardener came in and told the little baby saplings, hey, I'm preparing you for the real world, and we're going to blow the wind, and it's going to be cold, and it's going to be hot, and you're not going to get anything to drink for like 2 months. He said, but here's the cool thing is this is going to allow you to go out and grow to 300 feet in the air, right? And it's going to take you a long time. And in fact, people for the next 1,000 years could walk under your branches. But what we got to do is we got to understand that the things that we're going to go through is going to allow us to be that. And so all of a sudden, just think about it. The little saplings, they change their mindset from this is happening to me to this is happening for me. Oh, and so that's the difference. Ultimately, Johnny Juan, that's the difference between faith and fear. Faith is like, hey, I don't understand it, but this is happening for me. Fear is, this is happening to me, make it stop. And so when we go in that line, and that's why I love what you're doing, is that where's that event going to be?
It's going to be in Longview. Well, actually, going to be in Hallsville, right outside of Longview. I mean, just minutes right outside.
Okay, East Texans, this is your chance, and it's probably worth traveling in and spending the night, even if you live far away. Right? It's going to be amazing. So what the Choose to Win program is all about is it's about creating the right, it's happening for me mindset around our 7 roots: the mental, the spiritual, the physical, the family, the financial, the personal, and the career. And so when we understand and we start to believe that this is happening for me, and then we dig into cause and effect, well, what's causing my thought here and what's the effect of that? Because when you start having negative thoughts, remember, we acquire what we think about the most. And it's how we think about it that determines what it's going to do in our life. And so all these things are happening all around us all the time. We don't have any control over it, but we do have control over, is it happening for me or to me? And when you start putting the for me in there, and it changes the effect of what's going on, and that allows you to step into it. So I love that. And then there's one more principle of the greenhouse. Okay. And so think about the greenhouse. Now, what they maintained consistently in that greenhouse, they brought the wind, they brought the temperature, they had high levels of rain in there, then they dried them out. But what they maintained was the quality of the soil. The quality of the soil. And so in your own life, how are you preparing the soil that allows you to grow? And so what you feed your mind determines your appetite. So how do we prepare the quality of our soil? It's what we feed our mind, and it's what we feed our body. That's ultimately the quality of the soil. So it's what you eat, and it's what you hear, read, listen to, who you associate. That's what really creates the soil in your life, so that when the rains come, when the temperatures come, all these different things, the soil is strong. You're resistant to all that stuff because you know it's happening for you, so that someday, 300 feet in the air, generations from now, people will walk under your shadow, right? And be protected. So that's another example of legacy. So that is what legacy is all about. So the great grandkids you'll never know will be influenced and impacted by you because of the soil you create in your life and the way you choose to look at the world.
Boom, boom, bam, bam, go get them. Absolutely, right. And if you go scripture with it, we always try to talk Ziglar, scripture, tacos, fun, laugh. There's a lot of kinds of things that we try to throw in there. But the Bible says that a good man, human person, leaves an inheritance to his children's children. Yeah, you're never going to meet them, but they're going to be able to sit in the shade of the tree that you've been able to do, because the roots go deep, right? And you talk about being that tree planted by the river where the leaf doesn't wither, the storms come, it's strong, the roots are bedded down. And yes, absolutely. I put the link down in the comment section for those of you that want to travel in. It's actually a bed and breakfast. You can spend the night, hang out with us. It's going to be 100% of the proceeds. I love giving back. You talked about the 7 key areas of people's lives: mental, spiritual, physical, family, financial, personal, career. We added an 8th, community. And we really, really try to give back to every single cause that we can. I recently spoke at the inaugural gala for an organization called Orchids of Hope, which Esmeralda Barron is over that. It's amazing. Her testimony, how it all came about, is incredible. And there's many lives changing. And so the keynote that we're going to be doing on September 17th, every single one of those proceeds, it's only $49. For $50, you can come hear some life-changing wisdom, Zig Ziglar philosophy of be more, do more, and have more, right? And you can't give that which you don't have. And the ultimate gift is one of legacy. That's what we're going to be talking about. It's just going to be specifically tweaked for the real estate professionals. You know what's happening in that realm. And so we're going to be able to give back, and they're going to be given some special treats. It's going to be an experience, and I'm bringing the enthusiasm. And enthusiasm, I read this morning, isn't about being loud. Isn't about, it's about being able to just allow that spirit of God that is inside of you to come out. And they say that a cell, Ziglar said this, a cell is made when there's a transference of emotion, of enthusiasm. Tom, you wrote the book, Choose to Win, and I love it. I don't want to give it away, but we do have to talk about it. Let's talk about Choose to Win. I mean, you could go on forever, but if you were to wrap that up in just a few statements, what would it be, Tom?
Yeah, so the anchor quote in the book is, the fastest way to success is to replace bad habits with good habits, right? And so what is a habit? A habit is simply something that we do over and over and over again. I bet more than one person watching this has a habit like scrolling on social media, like, going down the death scroll, or sitting down in front of the TV with Cheetos or something like that, right? It's just a habit. And that bad habit then all of a sudden creates an effect. Poor health, poor mindset, fear, doubt, all these different things. And so what is the anchor quote? The fastest way to success is to replace a bad habit with a good habit. Why not sit down and instead of watching TV or death scrolling, why not tune into a live Facebook Live like this, where you get pumped up and fueled, right, to go out and do something, right? And if you're going to grab that snack, get something that fuels your body, something that gives you the energy. I mean, this is a thought that's really kind of struck me at the core, and that is this. I believe that everything we consume, either mentally or physically, right? Everything we consume is either moving us closer to the fulfillment of our purpose, or it's holding us back. And so if you ask yourself, do I have a purpose? And the answer is yes. Why would you ever consume something that's delaying the fulfillment of that purpose? Right? And so that's a big, deep thing. And I ask people, how long is eternity? It's a long time.
It's a little bit.
Does what we do right now in the now matter in eternity? I think it does. Right? I believe it does. I know it does, right? I go from think to believe to know, right? And so I know it does. So why would I do anything right now that doesn't have an impact on eternity in a positive way? Right? Why would I do? And man, that is a hard standard, right? But if you live that way, what's the effect? The now gets better than you can imagine.
Yeah.
It's like the fruit of that thinking is like the ultimate life now. Because you get
that's the ultimate goal, right? Dad, Zig Ziglar, always said that the reason he talked about it is because we're going to be in eternity a lot longer than we are going to be here on this earth.
Yeah.
What else, Tom? Thank you so much for being on here. I appreciate you. Again, this whole Fun Life community, I say it's powered by Zig Ziglar, and I call it the foundational program. This is it right here. This is the foundational program. I was trying to put up the infographic for the Choose to Win. It wouldn't come up. But when we really focus in on the desires and the why and the dreams and the gifts and those talents, that's that cornerstone, right, of everything else. And then we're able to move you almost systemically through that survival guide, through that stability, success, significance, and legacy cycle, to be able to help you really live out your childhood dreams in this playground we call life. They just happen to jump on the merry-go-round of real estate. And so what I've told people is that when they get to the top of that ladder of success, they're going to realize that there's a big twirly slide just waiting for them to come back down and take somebody else up there with them. It's lonely at the top unless you're helping other people. And Mr. Ziglar said it perfectly, right? You watching live on the replay. Thank you for being on here with us. Tom Ziglar's our guest. Zig Ziglar said you can have everything in life, everything, if you're just willing to help enough other people get what they want, Tom. I'm going to go ahead and give it to you. Let us wrap us up and take us home.
You bet. So for all of our realtors out there in that industry, I want to tell you a story. we had the big financial. If you've been in real estate a long time, you remember 2007, 2008. And that is when the whole mortgage meltdown crisis happened, right? And I got a call about a year and a half later. This is after, the housing prices went down and so many people got pushed out. And this guy reached out and he said, "Hey, I've been in real estate my whole life, but I'm thinking about getting out of it." And I said, "Well, why is that?" And he said, "Well, here's what happened. He and his wife I guess they had their own brokerage, and together they were bringing in over $500,000 a year. And they had put in they bought a lot of investment properties kind of at the peak. And when the real estate market crashed, they went bankrupt. And they were making, they went from like, say, 50,000 a month to under 5,000 a month in revenue between the two of them. And so if you have a $50,000 a month income, that's awesome. But it also means you got $50,000 a month expenses are pretty close to there, right? Because that's what happens. And so he says to me, I'm getting out. It almost cost us of our marriage, and I just don't know anything. And so I looked at him and I said, "Are you kidding me?" And he's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Are you kidding me?" And he says, "I don't know what you mean by are you kidding me?" And I said, "Are you kidding me that you're getting out now?" And he said, "Well, why do you say that?" And I said, "Well, do you know more about real estate now than you did 2 years ago?" He goes, "Oh yeah, I've learned every trick in the book. Every trick in the book. I know how to handle any type of property in any kind of situation, trying to, put Humpty Dumpty back together again the best we can, right? Just make whatever we can out of this." And I go, and the people who need a house sold now, are they in a good situation, or are they usually selling in this new market because they've got tough times? He said, "Oh, 90% of them are in tough times. That's why they're selling." And I said, "Well, do you think you understand what they're going through?" He goes, "Oh, I understand more than anything what they're going through," because he'd already told me. I knew that because he told me his history. And I said, "I want you to think about this. You know more about real estate than you've ever known, and you understand the market and the people buying and selling more than you've ever understood them before. And you're telling me that you're getting out?" So we hang up. He says, "You know what? I'm going to think about this." So 8 days later, I get an 8-page single-spaced email from him. And it kind of starts off like this: "Tom, you're not going to believe this, okay?" So what he did is he went out and he got his delisting list, which is just all the houses that had fallen off the list. They no longer had a representing agent. And he thought that was just a waste of time before the call. So now he starts going down the list. "Hey, I see that your house is on the market. I'd love to represent you." And of course, I was like, "No, no, 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 no." And then this woman picks up the phone and she's like depressed, upset, mainly just like bottom of the barrel discouraged. And she says, "Yeah, I don't know. I really do need to sell our house. Here's the reality. The reality is my husband and I are going through a divorce, and he is unwilling to put the house on the market because of all the fighting we've been doing." She said, "But we just need to get through this and move on." And so he said, "I'll come over. I'll understand your situation. And how about this? If I can get your husband to say okay, then I can represent you guys." And she said that would be great. So he meets with her. And so remember what he told me. He said he'd lost everything. He and his wife almost lost their marriage. And that's why he's getting out. And so now he's talking to somebody who has basically had his experience in a different way. So she signs off and says only good if he says so. So he goes over, and Johnny Juan, he he parks in front of the guy's place where he's living. This guy is staying with a friend, right? And he parks in front of his place because he knows he gets off work at 5. So he gets there 4:45 and he just waits for him to come home. So this guy gets it, he pulls up and he gets out of his car and he's like, okay, that's him. So he's like stalking him, right? So he gets out and he says, hey, and he calls his name. And the guy looks at him like, who are you and why are you here? And he says, hey, I just want to let you know that I'm a realtor. This is what I do. And I've reached out to your soon-to-be ex-wife, just offering to represent it. And she said that you guys were really in the pits, and her hope is that y'all could work this out and sell this house and move on with life. And I understand that completely. I've been there. I know what you're going through. And he said the guy lowered his head, shook it side to side, and said, yep, let's talk. And so he listed that house. And so I want y'all to hear this, because this is cause and effect. Everything that had happened to him in the previous 2 years was, this is happening to me, this is happening to me, this is happening to me. And all he did was switch in that moment and say, what if I'm perfectly positioned to serve people who need to sell a house better than I've ever been positioned before in my life? And so he shows up with that mindset and reaches out with that spirit, and he gets that assignment. So that's what Choose to Win is all about, right? We get to choose our mindset. We get to choose, is life happening to me or for me? We get to choose how we show up with the people we serve. And it's a powerful thing. It changes everything. So for those of you who were thinking about going to Johnny Juan's, how long is that event? How long is that?
The event is from 6 to 8. There's going to be some networking before. We're going to make it conducive for networking afterwards if they want to hang out, but it's also during the weekday, so we don't want to stay too late if you guys got to get the kids to school. But we're gonna open it up. We're gonna see how long we can do this, because at the end of this, we're gonna give a special invitation for a select few that want to join us on this 12-week transformational journey. It's going to be an in-person experience that, if they choose to take advantage of the opportunity that we're going to present to them, as you said, that their life will never be the same. This was kind of my proud moment here. Like, they can't see it, but it was the Ziglar Master Coach certification, or Ziglar Award, this year that I got this year. And I don't use it as much, more so because I kind of consider myself, I just want to help that person really kind of tap back into their childhood dream. Everything that I've garnered up until this point is just to be able to be a better version of myself that's going to help them. And one of my most recent clients, you were talking about this with the gentleman. We were going through the Choose to Win one-on-one coaching, and they said about a little bit over halfway, they're like, I don't get it. I don't understand. There's nothing coming. And it was like the Mr. Miyagi Danielson moment when he said, all I'm doing is painting your fence and wax on and wax off. And it's for nothing. I'm your slave. And then we implemented. We took them out of their environment. We took them to a place. All right, here, we're going to implement everything we've learned up until this point and put her out in the real world. And it was as if that light bulb came on, and she knew everything we'd been practicing and rehearsing up until that point. It just came to life. Never been the same yet. She's a recruiter with a large real estate agency here in this area, and she is just on fire. I see her social medias. I'm excited, and I want that kind of transformation for any of you real estate agents that want to join us to be a part of it. I mean, what would an additional 3 to 5 closings per month mean to you guys? Okay, maybe that's too much, right? Maybe 3 to 5 closings per quarter, right? Still too much? What about just 3 to 5 closings per year? I mean, there's a fun fact out there that says that a real estate agent with the coach or mentor will increase their closings by 25%. Let's say I'm half good and you only increase by 10-12%. Is it still worth it? Yeah. So if you're watching this and you want to come out and hang out with us, definitely. It's going to be at Walker's Mill Winery and Vineyard in Hallsville. I'll put the details in the comment section. I think April's already done that. But we want to be able to be in-person experience and help you really kind of dive into your purpose, because I'll give you a little hint. I'm not a real estate agent, but I don't have to be, right? So anyway, with that, Tom, I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Thank you for jumping on here. This means the world to me. You were the one that kind of kicked this off, right? When this idea popped in my head, hey, Tom, I think I want to do this. And your text said, yeah, let's go. I was like, that was easy. And Sue, you are the very first repeat guest on the Childlike Faith Podcast. We've advanced a little bit. We've learned a little bit. We've grown a little bit since then. And I can't tell you, I can't imagine going back to the way it used to was.
Perfectly clear. I got it.
So
thank you, brother. I appreciate you having me back. Right. So in the speaking world, we say, if you get invited to speak, there's a great deal of faith and trust that might not be deserved. But when you get invited back, that's a sign of a real appreciation. So thank you, sir.
Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate everything Mr. Ziglar did, Miss Julie, Miss Cindy, the whole Ziglar family. I mean, even Tiffany and getting the products and stuff ordered for this event has been amazing. So I can't wait. And we're also doing another certification, right? We're doing the Ziglar sales system that's going to be coming up. We're going to kind of bring in that to East Texas as well. So there's so much happening. And I'm excited, Tom, for you to have been my guest, my repeat guest, my first ever repeat guest on the Childlike Faith Podcast here in the Fun Life community, guys. So if you like this, share this with your friends, with your family, your neighbors, your coworkers, anybody and everybody, because we want to help them to be more, do more, and have more in this playground we call life. Guys, thank y'all so much. Appreciate you. Love you, Tom. Hang tight, and we'll go and wrap this thing up. Adios.